This is a breakdown about how Postmates got its first orders. First couple, I think 100 or 1,000 orders. How they got their first customers. It's from the first 1,000 newsletter, which I share all the time. The first 1,000 newsletter has since shifted to conversion rate optimization, but when it started, it was about how companies got their first users, their first visitors, their first customers. That's what this one is about. It's by Ali Abulata. He's the author of these. He wrote this in July of 2020, and he says, so Postmates was acquired by Uber for $2.65 billion last week. It seemed timely to write an issue on them. Let's rewind the clock to back when Postmates wasn't really Postmates. When Postmates launched its beta back in September 2011, they were a little bit different. Their offering was an on-demand delivery service connecting couriers and bike messengers within a city to anyone who needs to ship anything from a birthday card to a refrigerator. They were the Uber of things. In the old Postmates era, September 2011 to April 2012, Bastian, founder and CEO, was focused on onboarding retailers as furniture stores that don't necessarily have a full-time fleet but would need to do deliveries regularly. They could tap into the Postmates network and place a delivery order as easy as ordering an Uber. Bastian said, whenever we showed that solution to merchants, they got excited, said they would use it 1,000 times a day, and we got 1 or 2 orders from them at the end. In the we can buy you anything era, Postmates did have, theoretically, all the components they needed to create a billion-dollar company. $12 billion market size, fragmented, outdated, and opaque industry, distribution, merchant partners, stores recommending the solution to customers, network effects, user recommended by merchant, downloads the app, discovers new merchant, merchants get more customers, so they recommend more users. Also press coverage, TechCrunch, Time Magazine, Pando, which I've never even heard of, but it's since closed, RIP. Being a young startup, it's easy to get trapped in the if we only do X, we will break out mentality, especially if you are going after a big, outdated market with a sleek tech solution. VCs love that. Venture capital firms love that. This is why it took Bastian 7 months to look into the can I use Postmates to purchase X inquiries, which started almost immediately when the app first launched. At first, he was adamant that users don't get it, but as time proves again and again, the customer is always right. Listen to them. That's cool. So Postmates started, they were doing something else. Customers told Postmates what they wanted, and they weren't listening for a long time. And so here's what happened. This section is called Burnt by Merchants. When Bastian finally caved and decided to test this proposition, he had to go back to square zero and rethink where to deploy his energy in a 3-sided marketplace. Before, he focused on onboarding the supply side, merchants and couriers. He relied on merchants for demand/distribution. For the Get It Now app, he decided to shift gears and focus on generating consumer demand and onboarding couriers while completely hacking supply. He decided no more partnerships. Postmates will list every possible business in San Francisco that they could get their hands on through databases such as Yellow Pages, Yelp, and scraping businesses on Google Maps. They focused their energy on generating demand and acquiring customers. Bastian would later partner with merchants 3 years after the launch of the then named Get It Now app. So now we talk about how they got their early customers. Because Bastian, the founder and CEO, wanted to test this new value proposition quickly, he didn't spend as much time as he did on the old courier Postmates developing all the infrastructure that was needed, so he hacked a few things. He said, let's ship and figure it out. We'll let it break, we're going to figure it out. Let's just make sure that people want this. Let's validate it. So payments. He bought 20 Visa gift cards and gave them to his couriers. Partnerships. He scraped business info online and added it to his apps. Also, the couriers were disguised as customers, not to raise any red flags early on. And then Get It Now was released in the wild. This was rather different than when he launched the B2B courier service 7 months back. Bastian was a lot more methodical in tracking quality versus quantity. Being told before that his solution is amazing and they really needed it, and those same people rarely used it, made him a lot more cautious this time around, because people will tell you that they want something, and when push comes to shove, when it's time to actually purchase or use something, you'll see maybe they don't want it as much as they say. That's why it's important to validate as soon as you can. So Bastian launched Get It Now in 3 phases. pre-beta, trial with existing customers that submitted that request for Postmates to purchase something for them. They got their first 300 customers and $5,000 of gross market value. Invite-only beta. This is where they exceeded their first 1,000 orders. Besides hacking supply, Postmates implemented these 3 techniques to generate demand very early in their beta. They did this weekly experiment. They sent out a newsletter with a limited 2-day offer named Get It Now. Only for the weekend would Postmates go out and purchase anything the user wanted. If users wanted to be part of this promotion, they had to tweet out the hashtag #GetItNow on Twitter. Then there was limited invites for beta users. Every new user got the ability to invite only 5 new people, making invites for the service a desired commodity for the San Francisco darlings, and then incentivize user feedback. Bastian would offer in a blog post a free delivery for every piece of feedback emailed to him. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to say that again because I actually just think that's really fascinating. Bastian would offer in a blog post a free delivery for every piece of feedback emailed to him. This unremitting focus on user feedback very early helped direct the team to the most fundamental features to build before an actual launch 27 days later. And then the launch. Bastian had his way with the media. He launched Postmates back when they were only doing delivery on TechCrunch Disrupt and has since had numerous pieces published on his startup. He utilized that relationship, so he had an existing relationship and he used it, and he somehow convinced publications to plug in a promo code in the press release announcing the launch of the Get It Now app, which we now know as Postmates. So back when Postmates was only doing delivery, they launched on TechCrunch Disrupt, and he had an existing relationship with them. And then he got publications to plug a promo code and I think the promo code was in the press release announcing the launch of the Get It Now app, which turned into Postmates. All right, so I was confused about all these name changes. So I asked ChatGPT to research. It was originally called Postmates Get It Now, and then they just rebranded to Postmates. And the article ends, again, Bastian was focused on how much users spend per month on the app instead of how many users he had. He wanted to track the quality of his service. He cared about how much value he was creating for each customer. He wanted to nail the proposition first before going all out. Given what we know today, I'm sure he did the right thing. So what happened was, just to summarize, he thought he knew what the market wanted. The market told him what they actually wanted. He ignored it for, I think, years. No, he ignored it for 7 months, half a year. And when he actually decided to do it, it was a test. He shipped fast. He had heard before that people would tell him they wanted something when they didn't really want something, so he needed to test and validate. He bought Visa gift cards for his couriers so he wouldn't have to establish formal partnerships with merchants, and it helped them fulfill orders really fast. And then the couriers acted as regular customers when they picked up items from the merchants, the merchant information of which Postmates scraped, but the couriers acted like normal customers, even though they were not, so that they wouldn't have to secure these formal agreements. And they had their pre-beta. So they trialed with existing customers that submitted the request for Postmates to purchase something for them, the people who said do this, and it took them 7 months to listen. They got their first 300 customers and $5,000 of gross market value from this. Then they did this invite-only beta. They had a newsletter with a limited 2-day offer named Get It Now. Postmates would go out and purchase anything the user wanted, but only if they tweeted the hashtag Get It Now on Twitter. Every new user got the ability to invite only 5 new people, and the founder offered in a blog post a free delivery for every piece of feedback that was emailed to him. Oh, and then he had the press connection with TechCrunch from doing a previous launch. I thought that was a really cool story. You know what struck me of this? It's how, so bottom of funnel search engine optimization, that is when you are targeting keywords where searchers know what they want, but they don't know the brand that is going to give it to them. It's very often that that you are searching for a solution, you actually know exactly what you want, but you don't know the brand that's going to fulfill it for you. This happens all the time. Happens to me all the time. Probably this happened to you. And you will likely go to Google. Maybe you'll try ChatGPT. ChatGPT takes a lot of its answers from Bing. Bing is very similar to Google. And you will search a very specific thing, hoping to get a brand recommended as your solution. And so what you do is if you're a brand, you find all the different use cases you can satisfy. And then you make a page targeting each use case. Each use case is a keyword. It's something that people put into Google. And oftentimes when you do this, what you will find, because I've done this ad nauseum, I just released a product called Compact Keywords about it, which I spent the past 11 months making, compactkeywords.com if you want to see. What will happen is people will Google these things and they will email you or even just buy the product right away and then say, hey, I thought the product could do this. Can you make it do that? Or I looked at your landing page. Is it possible that the product can do this? And when you do these things with SEO, you will find that people will literally tell you what they were hoping your product would do or what they were hoping your brand would do. They will tell you what they want and you didn't even know, and they will tell you. And then you just make it. Then you make it for them. And you're like, yeah, well, actually, we're going to have that done by the end of next week. And it takes you 3 weeks. Well, whatever. But you will find that people will say the same things over and over and over again. And it's very common as a founder or a business owner or even a marketer that you think people want your brand for one thing when actually they want it for something else, but you just don't have a method for getting them to tell you what they want. And you can validate, just like that was the other thing, just like Bastian did in this Postmates story, you can validate as well. You can say, yeah, we're building that. Actually, if you pay early, we'll give you a heavy discount. You can make sure that they really want it. And you can do that with the first couple of customers just to make sure. I thought there was so much good stuff in the story. I really liked it. I like these first 1,000 stories, how businesses get their first 1,000 users, orders, customers, visitors, whatever it is. I like these scrappy business stories. They're so fun for me. It's one of the reasons I have this show. It's one of the reasons I have my TikTok and my Instagram. I like sharing this stuff. I like reading about it, and I like sharing it, and I like doing it. So this is episode 554 of doing this. 554 episodes talking about this stuff, doing this stuff. 554 days in a row making this podcast. Thank you so much for watching if you watch this on YouTube. And thank you so much for listening. If you listened on Spotify or Apple Podcast, shout out to the first 1,000 newsletter. The link for what I read to you will be in the description of this episode. And I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.